laughter and collective trauma. So why humor specifically? So it started when we were putting together the program, Silja and I, and Silja talked to me about a specific kind of humor, which was the post-Oslo Accord humor. And I was very baffled by it because I had never heard of that. After we did some research, turns out that indeed there was a PhD thesis and a researcher, Crisula Lionis, that you mentioned, that talked about that. And basically, her work centers around the relationship between humor and Palestinian occupation and exile, or in other words, laughter and collective trauma. Of course, it rings the bell for me because, I mean, humor is a cultural phenomenon coming from Lebanon and also used to historical tragedies. It's the way that, you know, that it's also being dealt with. But, I mean, it's also a strange focus, and to make it a whole program around it, yeah, we need a bit more research around that. But it's important to note one thing, is that while the scope of this film program is basically films that were made at the beginning of, or more or less around the Arab Spring, it's important to note why that. It's simply because around the mid-century, when the West, or when the rest of the Arab world got decolonized per se, and you know, a couple of years or maybe 10 years after, we got this more central sort of dictatorships that were put in place, and then the Arab Spring came to topple that. Palestine follows a completely different timeline. There was never a decolonization. Palestine is still under occupation, and that's an important thing to note. While there were many attempts to make peace processes, the one that is mostly known being the Oslo Accord, they all have been absolute, you know, how do you say, disaster, to say the least. So the failure of the peace process has meant that Palestinians, in effect, live in a state of perpetual limbo. This is most apparent when considering the administrative divisions of the Oslo Accord that created a temporary administrative breakup of the Palestinian territories. The division was created as a consequence of the Oslo II Accord of 1985, which dictated that the Palestinian territories will be divided into areas A, B, and C. So you can imagine the bureaucratic conundrum that Palestinians are faced daily with. So although allegedly established as a temporary agreement serving until a final status accord was established, the division of the territories remains in place today, 2 decades after the signing of the accord. Citing the words of former Israeli Foreign Minister Shlomo Ben-Ami, who explains that Oslo was an exercise in make-believe. The failure of Oslo was meant that daily life in Palestinian territories is one long-lasting Groundhog Day of unbating occupation. The effects of the failed peace process have led to what can be described as a slow death for Palestinians in the territories. So the ongoing occupation and the inability to maintain and predict an economic and political infrastructure and any kind of future, as a matter of fact, mean that Palestinians live in a constant state of emergency. So I think that this is an important thing to understand when thinking of that, the humor part. Understanding this, it can be perhaps surprising that the failure of the peace process and the ongoing occupation, with its lot of daily humiliation and violence, becomes a central emphasis in the humor of contemporary Palestinian art and film. So here I would like to bring in the theorist Paolo Virno, who, providing an explanation of jokes, writes that in order to happen, jokes need an indifferent audience to exist. So comparing the need for an indifferent audience to the success of a joke as being the same as for a revolution, Virno's discussion might be also broadened to account for manifestation of humor more generally. This can also be said of his discussion of jokes as innovative actions, where he explains that the innovative action is an urgent action. Those who accomplish it are always in a state of emergency. So when Virno's discussion of humor is applied to Palestine, it becomes understandable why Palestinian artists and filmmakers have turned to humor. They are faced both with a state of emergency that is both an experiential state and a political state. Adding to the fact that they are operating within a relentless interim emergency period, these artists and filmmakers are also confronted with an indifferent international audience who, both confused and worried by the conflict, have developed trauma fatigue. So basically, another explanation for the resort to humor can be seen as symptomatic of life under occupation and the fact that humor and laughter can be used as a form of mature defense mechanism. Humor as a defense mechanism has been widely researched in psychological discourse and argues that as a psychological defense, humor is a protective process that allows individuals to maintain their integrity in the face of threat and danger. Humor finds itself in company with other psychological processes, including suppression, rationalization, sublimation, and they are all a way to guard oneself from the detrimental psychological effects of trauma. So specifically now talking about the films that we're going to be seeing, Fix Me, the feature one. So perhaps the most lucid example of the utilization of humor to examine the psychological effects of trauma brought by occupation is the documentary film Fix Me, which was made in 2009 by Raed Andoni. So Fix Me revolves around the story of its director, Raed Andoni, as he strives to remedy a seemingly incurable headache that he contends may have existed for generations. Following Andoni's through 20 therapy sessions as he tries to cure his condition, Fix Me uncovers the filmmaker's repressed memory of his time as a political prisoner as the root of his ailing health. With each appointment and exercise with his psychologist, Fix Me further investigates the effect of displacement and alienation, and not just only on Andoni and his family and friends, but also upon Palestinians at large. So that's the feature film that we'll be watching today. It will be preceded by two shorts by Mahdi Fleifel. One will be 20 Handshakes for Peace, which is a 5-minute short film, and we thought it would be a great way to introduce a little bit the idea of what was the Oslo Accord, with also a text voiceover by Edouard Said. And the second one is I Signed the Petition, a 10-minute short film, also around the absurdity of life under occupation as well. Thank you very much, and see you later. Yes, and it's I've seen it already a few times, but it's incredible how I really find this film depicts the reality of living under occupation, and I'm sure others would agree, like no other. And so specifically, I would say how symptoms emerge in the context of an adverse environment as a coping mechanism. I mean, it's very clear how you put it, or the correlation that you put in it. So, I mean, that's what I definitely find very interesting, among other things. But I was sorry, I'm going to continue in English. I wanted to ask you how, or if you could tell us more about how this film came to be. How the conception of it, and how did you come up with it?
Actually, when I start working in this film, to be honest, I didn't have any idea or deep idea about psychological treatment or about psychoanalysis, but all the time as a filmmaker, I feel the sensation whenever I work on an idea, trying to write a script or work in a previous film. Always there is this relation of trying to understand the character. And that lets you spontaneously trying to understand the depth behind things. So for me, that was the issue that I'm living in Palestine. This film, I filmed it in 2009, 2008, 2009, living in Palestine, a certain period of time. And I start to search more about trying to understand the psychology. Then I thought, okay, if I'd start and this is a kind of very sensitive topic in Palestine. I think in Lebanon it's the same.
Yes.
Like if you saw this big building that they have in Ramallah and they have an entire floor as an psychoanalysis clinic. Actually, I think I was the only client there at that period of time. Honestly, people don't go to psychoanalysis, but I think spontaneously people develop more natural alternative psychoanalysis. You can see that in a way in the family gathering. How's the family gathering when I go there? It's a kind of psychoanalysis sessions, but the people use different way of expression, solidarity, social life, big families, all of that as an alternative way. So for me, all the ideas start of trying to understand myself. Then after that, look, in the end, cinema is all about perspective. It's find the perspective how you will tell you the story. This film is true. It's about Palestine. It's about me, but it's also about Palestine. It's about the situation, about surviving harsh reality, etc. But the perspective of it is a kind of trying to understand. It's put in within a psychoanalysis perspective, and I think the main question in the film is the relation between individual identity and collective identity. And the collective identity, I told you, it's developed in a place like Palestine. It's developed because the entire society living a cause. All of us are living under a military occupation. All of us living under the daily humiliation at the checkpoint. So you develop a kind of collective identity and you develop a kind of collective solidarity. At the same time, it's a kind of psychological support that give you a psychological support. So for me, the main question came during my research about the question of individuality within this content. As a filmmaker, where you are trying to find your unique voice, your individual voice, your own perspective, then the entire film is actually talking about the story of a filmmaker who's living this collectivity, where he can find his individuality, where he can find his unique voice. Because if I want to find my perspective as a filmmaker, I need to find my individuality, who I am, how I see things, from which perspective. So all these questions together then came with this kind of format of a film, filming my real psychoanalysis session, and after that, filming actually a kind of daily diary life, that period of time in Palestine.
Yes. Actually, I wanted to ask you this question a bit later, but I think it's more appropriate now that you opened the idea of the subject of individuality and collectivity. So at some point in the film, you explain that, since your childhood, Palestinians are told that, we are the Palestinians, we are the tough guys, we will return, we won't be beaten. And, would you say that this idea of sumud, which I will translate as steadfast perseverance, like this idea of resisting, of perseverance as a form of resistance, may in itself be an occupying force?
No, actually our problem in Palestine that those whom occupied us or oppressed us, we are under the oppression of a kind of famous people, in a way. The Israeli are famous, and I think that's what makes us famous, actually, as a Palestinian as well. So in a certain way, you will start to feel that other have already a pre-perspective about you. So whenever I go to a kind of Arab country, they expect me to be the fidai, to be the fighter, the freedom fighter, to be this kind of symbol of resistance, the Palestinian who resist the occupation, and he go to prison and he suffer, etc. So you already, I said that you are framed,
yeah,
which is a kind of you are prejudged in a way. And in the other side, for those who support Israel or support the oppressors or support the occupation, in a way, we are the terrorists who fight we are the terrorists. And so you find yourself between two places. And also, when you start to work as a filmmaker, also you find that there is also already things that you have to film. Like you have to make films about either gender, about democracy, because most of the money coming from the West, and actually this is the agenda that they would like to hear about. It's not our true story. So, or you have to talk about bridges between culture, or talk about diversity, etc. And the real topic, each and we are not allowed to talk about it. So, in a way, you find yourself as a Palestinian filmmaker losing your individuality because you have to live within your own society. Otherwise, you will get crazy. You are living in let's say, in a very solid collective identity. When you go to certain places, you are a hero. When you go to another places, you are a terrorist. In the cinema industry, you have to deliver certain meaning, etc. So where is the individuality in that? Where is the real individuality? Where is the real meaning of filmmaking as well itself? So all these kind of questions, I think, are in my mind while I'm doing this film.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also this idea of, can freedom exist without also an individual freedom in that sense?
Absolutely, yeah.
The film your film that we screened tonight was under one of the series that we're doing, and the title was Laughter and Collective Trauma, or this idea of humor under occupied Palestine, and so I'm wondering, because this is a documentary, and so I'm wondering, one thing is that, I mean, on one side it's hard to talk about humor considering the condition under which Palestinians live. I mean, it's there's nothing humoristic about that. From one side, it's a delicate subject, or and the other is that humor by itself, by nature, it's hard to talk about it. I mean, the more you explain a joke, the less it's funny. So I'm wondering, how were you able, or how or did you provoke humor in your documentary? Or,
no, actually, okay, go ahead, continue.
No, it's just that, was it perfect, or was it something something that you devised in order to get closer to reality? Or, and then I'll let you finish my question.
Look, I'll tell you something. I'll give you a little example. Just to understand. Actually, I believe that it's the other way. When reality is more hard, humor is more present always. I'm living in Europe for the last 10 years, maybe, or so far. You hear there is a very well-known, he's avocat, he's a lawyer and a human rights activist. His name is Salah Hammouri. His mother is French and his father is Palestinian, and he was spending almost like 6-7 years in jail in Israel without even going to a court or something. And finally, they decided just to kick him out of Palestine to France. So he just arrived to France maybe 2 weeks ago. When he came here to France, all the pro-Palestinian solidarity with Palestine is coming to him, and because he's a kind of a symbol. He's known here, actually. He's a kind of symbol for the justice, the justice and the Palestinian fight. We have a common friend, me and Salah. Like, his close friend is a really close friend of mine. So this friend came from Palestine to me. And suddenly, Salah, he finds himself coming out of jail, and this friend who came in Palestine, he's so funny, actually. You can't imagine the humor. So I called Salah and called Raed. So I telling him, this is exactly the dialogue. it's very serious here. Like the French activists coming, showing support. They are really grim, real sad faces, serious, etc. So this is a discussion. I'm calling Salah, I'm calling Raed. So Raed picked the phone. I told him, Raed, officially, I don't know what I have to tell Salah. Shall I tell him Alhamdulillah as-salama, and thank God for you, for your release? In this case, he has been departure. Like they kick him out of Palestine. He's not even allowed to go back. They take his identity. So officially, what should we tell Salah in this case? So Raed told me the official Arabic language didn't yet find the right expression for that. But in the Ammiya, which is the street language, you can simply tell him, they fucked you, Salah. Are you happy now? You know? Just imagine the situation. All these French activists, they will not get it.
Yeah.
The only one who get it, these two Palestinians, he's coming out of jail, deported by the Israeli, and his friend who's coming from Ramallah telling me that you should tell him, they fucked you, Salah. Are you happy now? This is the soul of Palestine. This is the soul of Palestine. If you don't live it, you will not understand it. So the humor in Fix Me is, I think it's small. I can go further. Really, I can go further. It's the soul of the place, humor. I think humor is a tool of surviving. If we are serious in Palestine, we'll die by heart attack. Actually. So yes, humor is important in dark places.
Yeah.
I think it's a way, it's a tool. So I see that the humor in the film, it's just, let's say that it's in a good dose. It could be even more.
Well, it definitely made us laugh a lot. And also, like I said, really I mean, I can say personally that it makes you really feel what it is to live daily, the daily life there. In some ways, I don't know, I wouldn't know, but in some ways for sure. But
actually, there is some event, very bloody event that you have to cry, like really your heart cry when you see it. Every day they kill 2 to 3 young guys every day almost in West Bank or in Gaza, and thousands of people in prison. You cry from your heart, not even your eyes getting dry, but you cry deeply. But to overcome all this pain, you need, you find alternative. I told you, they don't go to the psychoanalysis clinics, but the Palestinian, they develop an alternative way of surviving.
Yeah.
Through humor, through big families, through social life. I only hear jokes when I go to Palestine. I hear jokes from Lebanon, by the way.
Yeah.
Here, like even the jokes, when they tell me jokes, really I don't laugh. I pretend that I'm laughing, but I don't laugh from my heart. Not because they don't know how to tell jokes, but because the joke there in a place like Palestine, it's like Salah and Raed. Like, it's the most black situation. A guy has been deported. They take his identity. They told him, you are not a citizen anymore. You leave. And at a sudden, his friend just making joke about it. It's like coming from a place, from a real place. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely understand what you're saying, also in the context in Lebanon, in that sense. I was wondering if because the audience maybe want to participate, and do you have any questions that you would like to ask Raed, or maybe, I don't know, a contribution or thought? If not, if you do, just let me know, and Ayman here can, and if not, I'll continue with you. But the thing is that because we were talking about this idea of sumud, of perseverance and everything, and you're talking also in your film about this idea of being the right to be weak. And I feel that that there is that's I was trying to I was talking a little bit about it earlier, but I feel that this there is not only an occupation of of the land, of the mind, but there's also a self-imposed occupation, in the sense that we cannot but be strong, and we have to be, in that sense, that way. And I think that what I find interesting in your propos, in what you say, is that you say the opposite, that and maybe if you want to tell us more about that, the right to be weak.
Maybe I'm playing in the film the role of the devil advocate, the lawyer of the evil, in a way, because I'm really sometimes asking the tough questions, even for my friends. And in this case, I am asking this question to Omar, this electrician who has cancer for 16 years.
Yeah.
And until today, he's in good health, thank God.
Wow. That's great.
He has cancer now for more than 30 years. And he believed that he beat the cancer because he has a strong soul. But later in the film, in the last interview with him in the car, he explained that actually the strength that I have is love, because I love my wife, I love my daughter, I love my friends. You see Muhammad Atta, then he told me, this kind of friend, I want to live more, to spend more time with him. So in a way, he explained the strength, being strong, in a very interesting way. But yes, I still believe that a main problem in a place like Palestine, where people are, how can I explain it? Like you have to keep moving all the time. There is no pause. You can't have a pause. You can't look inside yourself. If you do that, you will go into depression.
Yeah.
Actually, in Palestine, I never visited a psychoanalysis. When I came to live in France, I started to see a psychoanalysis, because this pause, when you take a pause and to look inside yourself and ask the question, this is a tough moment, because you face the reality, all the pain that you hold inside you, that you cover it with a humor. It's like a machine that can't stop in Palestine. That's why people there, yes, you see that they are more tough, they are more strong, and they don't have the right to be just normal, weak people. They don't express emotion. Even in emotion expression, they are, let's say, they are conservative. And I think if you go to Lebanon, you will find the same, in a way. They are more rational. When you talk to people, they immediately rationalize things. And because it's a tomato box. Yeah. It's like a tomato box. If you open it, there is a lot. 70 years of occupation. 1 million prisoner. Like we are actually in West Bank, in Gaza, around 5 million Palestinian. Among us, there is 1 million prisoner, like 20% of the population. 10 of thousands has been killed. So a lot of pain inside, but people need to survive, to keep running, to keep going, in a way. So they have to remain strong, which is true. I'm glad that Omar, in the last part of the film, he explained strength, love as a source of strength. That makes sense, actually. Yeah. That's interesting to hear in the film.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and this idea also that, I mean, like you say, rationalization, like humor, is a way of, of coping with this reality.
Absolutely, yeah.
I was wondering...
even not that, even like you see the scene in My Family, when they are always sitting talking about capitalism and imperialism and socialism and the world resources, and like these topics is a daily topics in Palestine. Like really, in every meeting in Palestine, you will find international topic, like they want to change the entire world, in a way. They want to create a new economical system for the entire... So it's all about rationalizing the problem, trying to escape from the pain into something that they can, in a way, deal with it mentally.
Yeah. No, it's, I mean, I definitely recognize the level of the conversations that are, you know, solving the big issues of the world. Whereas in other societies, it's more of a it's more of an, you know, a focus of within the inside of what's going on in, or.
Absolutely. We go to the mind and we're afraid to grieve, you know. You know.
I mean, as a filmmaker, I'm also very interested in how this film came to be. In the sense that how did you, what was your like filming apparatus? You had a crew. Did you have to tell in advance? I mean, you know, how did you deal with the subjects, and how did you deal with the with the frame per se?
First of all, I start by putting first myself limitations.
Yes.
I said that first day of filming will be my first meeting with the psychoanalyst, with the Dr. Fathi. And the last day of filming will be the last day of the last meeting with him. So the entire film has to be done during that period of time, which was around 20 weeks, a little bit long time, 22 weeks. And the entire film has to be done during that period of time. My meeting with the doctor was a real one. It's like my first meeting with him was the first time I see this guy and he see me. Okay. All that has been arranged by my producer, my assistant. They met with him and they have the agreement with him. Then, as you see, we have the camera crew behind the glasses, so we have the entire room to be, you don't feel the camera inside. We have microphones inside. It's set, in a way, it's set to be like in a private room. But I know from the beginning that, okay, I know that there is a camera. And I find myself in a challenging position, because I know that I have to be honest in a way as a person who's under psychoanalysis. But at the same time, I know that I'm a filmmaker. I'm looking for a narrative to build it. So that was very challenging, how to deal with it. Then I thought, come on, if I'm going to film around 20 sessions, so I'm going to have around 20 hours of rushes. So I just let it go. But the question of let it go, all this is my planning. The question of let it go, it's also another challenge, very challenging for me, because before I start filming, I need to write a file, what is the project is. And if I just let it go for the doctor, then actually the doctor is the one who's making the film. It's not me, because he's asking the question and I'm answering. So I'm changing the place with him. So before I start filming, I decide to go to another doctor. And I made around 4 to 5 sessions with him, and I filmed those sessions, just to trying to see what will come out. And there, actually, I find the question of individual identity and collective identity. And I wrote my entire file, the treatment, because it's a documentary, I wrote a treatment related to the question of collective identity and personal identity in a place like Palestine. And it's true, when I went to the doctor, the real doctor now, where I start filming, this question was made, because it was real. And I started, all of it, I started with the issue of headache, that I have a headache, and I'm coming to solve the headache. Then from that, we go on to this existential question that come during the process. Then after that, the doctor put another limitation to me. He told me that, okay, I will agree that you film, but you can't review the rushes before we finish the entire process.
Okay.
And I think that was actually in a way not easy, but it was useful as well, because and I didn't look to the rushes actually. It's true. The rushes that I filmed inside the therapy room, I didn't see it until we finished. So in a way, I start to play this game. I have a therapy sessions and I'm filming my daily life. The topics that come from the therapy session, they go with me to my daily life when I meet with people. The memory that comes from the therapy session, I try to dig it in my daily life. At the same time, things that happen with me in daily life come back with me to the therapy session. So I start to build the relation and at the same time developing the concept. But because I'm not looking to the rushes, I have to depend on what I feel, honestly what I feel. Like when he, for example, asked me to bring the picture and he started to ask me about the family, then after that, he started to use methods. He surprised me. Like he asked me to write poets, pick words, and then to do music. So at that moment, I asked myself, come on, if he's using art as a way of expression, I already have my camera. So I start to film all these unrealistic scenes in Palestine, where I can make the wall for, it's a kind of artistic expression that I am inspired doing it from the therapy session. Or when I'm filming myself in the washing machine that wash the car. Then also, since it's a personal film, from the beginning that I decide that this film is not objective at all. I'm not looking for objectivity. I'm not trying to show what's happening in Palestine. I want to show Palestine from my point of view. So you see me driving like crazy in the street or passing through, all the time it's on my head. Like the entire, what you see actually all the time, you see it through my eyes. And that gives me a kind of very interesting perspective to film a documentary, a subjective documentary, or a kind of narrative documentary. Even the scene with the camel, or the camel and the sea level, all these fantasies, that's allow me to go there in a way, because I am free from being objective. I'm not objective. I'm not filming you to show anything about the location, the Palestine, all the film happening in my head. And you are going with me inside the psychology. So as any other filmmaker, before you go filming, you need to have, you need to answer many questions in your mind about your perspective, about many things. So in a way, when I started, I was, let's say, 60–70% ready, but also I adapt to what's happening inside the therapy room. I inspired from the therapy room to film things that's happening outside. So in a way, it's a game.
Yeah.
And also I do it with normal sense of a humor, because it's just there, you just have to film it. Like when mother told me that everyone has a headache, why your headache is important? Or,
Yeah.
Then after that, we go to demonstration. She lied. She told him, yeah, he's doing a film about what's going on in the area.
Yeah, that was really funny.
Yeah.
Okay, wow.
She's shy to tell him that he's making a film about his headache. Because it's shameful, absolutely, it's shameful.
Yeah. No,
imagine I am in a demonstration and they are throwing tear gas, and then I tell, come on, this film is about my headache. Come on, like it's.
Yeah, you could see that she was, trying to cover it up.
Yeah, she's trying to cover it up, absolutely. So it's.
Yeah. No, that was fascinating methodology, I must say. Does anybody want to ask anything? Yes, there is someone. Actually, no. Ayman is going to give you a microphone. I was wondering if I should turn around, but I think it's okay. Okay, so.
So I was wondering about the reception of the movie, and if anyone in the movie saw it and how they reacted to it. If they got a different perspective on their situation, or yeah.
Did you hear? Should I repeat?
Yeah. Look, outside of Palestine, the film was very well received. Like it was in Sundance Film Festival, it was in Cannes Film Festival, among hundreds others, like not hundreds, tens others. And it has a very good critique and I think it has a good critique because it came as a surprise to the market in a way. Suddenly, a Palestinian filmmaker coming out with this crazy idea of filming his psychoanalysis session, so something unexpected. And before, I will tell you about Palestine and the character, but something interests me, for example, from audience, moments that I still remember. I find that many people feel related to the story. For example, I was in Sundance Film Festival, Utah. You know where is Utah? Utah, like in the end of the world. And actually, most of the people in Utah are Mormons. They are in a way a kind of, they have very specific, very precise religion in Christianity. Conservative. So a man came to me and he's very touched, and he's so touched by the idea that I go back to my sister looking for a picture because I forget my childhood. And he told me, actually, it was my story. Your story is my story. When my parents divorced, I used to be 6, 7 years old, but all the memory before the divorce has been deleted from my mind. So actually, this is what's beautiful in films, because audience can relate to, okay, it's happened in Palestine. He will never imagine himself as a Palestinian, but he can imagine himself as someone who forgets his childhood memory. And that's actually built an interesting connection. And I faced many situations similar to that, how foreigners or Westerns, or not only Western, foreigners in general, they can find a link to relate to that topic. In Palestine, it's on a different issue, actually. In Palestine, I think females like the film more. I have a lot of females fans there, which is make me glad, actually. Men in Palestine, either they like it or hate it. A lot of them really love it or hate it. They don't have any like really critique about it or attacking the film. No, they are very nice, very kind to me. But I know that many of them, they refuse the film because as a sudden, you are putting a mirror in front of the things that they don't want to see. I think women are more sensitive to psychoanalysis issues and to the deep question. Men are trying to cover it all the time, especially in a place like Palestine. As we said in the beginning, it's a tomato box. People just prefer to deny it and continue their life because opening it is harmful, especially for men. So yeah, I know that there is some audience in Palestine that hate the film, but I'm surprised although that many others love it in Palestine, fix me. And all the other who is part of the film, they like it. I don't know if they are like just saying that in front of me, but they are my friends and we are still friends. So, but in general, yeah. My mother is happy when the film was like well received, and she's like in festival and she see all the articles and all the news about it and all the media. Like she was so glad in front of her neighbors. At a sudden I became a good boy now.
We can only have another question. As we have to round up soon. Well, I'm dying to ask you one question. Did you fix your headache? Did it go away?
No, actually, my headache actually, yes, in a way. This problem of headache, I don't have it anymore, but I have much more problems now.
That's
I have a real serious problem.
That's the thing with symptoms, is that once you fix one, it
I think
manifests
the symptoms go from the headache to something
somewhere else.
deeper.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. All right. Mabincha Barmenak, and which basically means that it's never enough to the conversations with you can be endless. Thank you very much for the conversation and for your film, yes, I hope to see you soon.
Thank you a lot. You are welcome anytime. You know.
All right.
Come to Paris.
Yes.
Thank you a lot, actually, and thank you also to give me this opportunity. You know, this I didn't talk about this film since long time now, because I make one big one after it, and so thank you to give me this opportunity to recall this this film trip. Thank you a lot, and thank you for coming, everyone. Hope you will enjoy your evening.
Thank you, Raed.
Thank you.
Au revoir. Bye.
Bye.